It's the Hero Show. Welcome to the Hero Show, everybody. Starring the irrepressible Andrew Bernstein and the Renaissance man, Robert Begley. I am Andrew Bernstein, and you are indubitably Robert Begley. How you doing this morning, Robert?
I'm doing great, Andy. Ready to blast off into today's topic.
Yes, up there in the Maine woods or Vermont or New Hampshire,
Vermont,
whatever.
yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Vermont, up there with all those commies in the well, maybe they're not commies, but all those left-leaning Americans up there in Vermont. Uh, I just, I'm not going to be as irrepressible today because I'm pretty sick. Got a bad sinus infection or something, so I may have to lean on you to carry the heavy
Sure.
load in blasting off. But Apollo 11, man, at his best. That's well named, isn't it?
Yes. If we look at the top achievements in human history, this certainly qualifies as one of them. It's not one person, it's a culmination of centuries, millennium, if we go back like even to from Aristotle through Newton, through the 20th century inventions and entrepreneurs. I think this achievement, I had goosebumps, Andy. I was a kid when it happened, but stayed up late at night to see it. And I'll tell you, this was one event that I bonded with my mother over and continuing on with the space program. But what was your experience? You were a bit older. You were more aware of what was going
Yeah.
on back then.
Yeah, before I answer your question, maybe we should also
Yeah.
mention Robert Goddard. The
Yes.
father of
Yes.
rocketry. So I think
Yes.
he certainly is a
From
was
Massachusetts.
yeah. Is that
Hmm.
where he's from? I didn't even know it. So I just know he's the
Yes.
father of rocketry, and certainly be a key player in the development of the Apollo program. But yeah, July 1969. I was 18 years old, and I was always, they say these major events, and you always remember, where you were and what you were doing. And normally, when people say that, Robert, they're often referring to bad, really bad stuff. Like I can remember when John Kennedy was assassinated. I was in the
Mm.
1963. I was in the seventh grade. Uh, I remember, bad things like that. But Apollo 11 is the one really good thing that I can remember. See, I didn't bond with my mother over this because going back to the Mercury program in 1961, that to me that school was boring. But Americans launch into space. I wanted to stay home and watch the Mercury launches. Alan Shepard and Gus Grissom and John Glenn.
Mhm.
I'd feign illness. It's ironic today that I really am. I really do have a terrible sinus infection. I really am sick today. I wasn't sick back then. I'd fake it, so I could stay home and watch because the U.S.
Mm.
space program is so heroic, and of course the Soviets really were bad guys, and so the space race had some significance, not just for prestige, but I mean, when they say he who controls the skies controls the seas, and he who controls space controls the skies, it had had military significance and survival value. But July 1969, I was 18 by that time, and I remember, I was glued to the small black and white TV set that
Yes.
my parents had, and it's just, you know I can remember watching the launch a couple of days previously, and then watching the lunar landing. The Eagle has landed. Neil Armstrong
Mm.
said on July 20th. It was at night on the East Coast, right? It was 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, as I recall,
Yes.
uh, when
Yes.
they landed. Yeah, and
Mhm.
everybody around the world. I don't know, hundreds of millions of people around the world were watching on TV. It was just, it was a, just a, it was just a global phenomenon. A lot of people around the world who generally were anti-Americans. This was during the Vietnam War. Also, there was a lot of anti-American sentiment. Were watching, to see if these astronauts, well, despite being Americans for some people, or because they're Americans for others, but if these astronauts could do this successfully and return home, alive, this is space travel is extremely dangerous. and
Yes.
I think everybody realized that. So yeah, every hundreds of millions of people around the world were glued to the TVs watching this, as it was an amazing
First
event.
event of its kind, right? Yeah, first event of its kind that was a global, that everybody who had access to a television or some kind of communication and of newspapers as well, just it was unanimous. You and John had covered Charles Lindbergh in a prior Hero Show episode, and back then the communication, it was incredible what Lindbergh did and the
Hmm.
reaction to him. But Armstrong, a couple of decades later, was and the Apollo crew and everybody in Houston. One of the main things here is that if we just talk about Armstrong himself, he was the right guy in the right time because
Yeah.
he did not do this for the prestige. He didn't do it for the media coverage or anything. He did it because it was his job in the proper sense. And his steady, calm demeanor was a major factor in being picked, being chosen as the commander and the first man to land on to walk on the moon.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And earlier John and I did a hero show on Amelia Earhart. We did not do Charles Lindbergh.
Hmm.
So you and I
Oh,
could
I'm
definitely
sorry.
do an
Yeah,
episode. Yeah, you and I could
I'm
definitely do an
sorry.
episode on Lindbergh. I mean, he
Yeah.
certainly deserves it. I know before I come back to Apollo 11, do one on Apollo 13 also, which is like Apollo 13, like
Yes.
Shackleton, who we did do a show on. It's an extraordinary survival story. I mean, it's just
Yes. Yes.
amazing. And they didn't have the one movie that I think all objectivists agree on, is the Ron Howard film Apollo 13.
Yes.
So we have to do a hero show
Brilliant.
episode on that too. But you're right, Neil Armstrong. Yes, he was just quiet, competent, can do guy. I know you and I discussed. We may disagree about the Ryan Gosling film First Man, but it shows him as the X-15 pilot, which was at Edwards Air Force Base early in his career, which was I could vaguely remember from when I was a kid. Also very dangerous,
Hmm.
and yeah,
Hmm.
he was a great test pilot. U.S. Navy pilot. Yeah, quiet, calm
Korean War
confidence.
veteran, right?
That's right.
Uh,
That's right.
Korean War
Yeah,
veteran
that's
as
yeah,
well.
that's right. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's right. That reminds me of something. It says, my poor mother was so neurotic. I mean, she'd freak out over the smallest things, and my friends would show up at dinner time, and she couldn't handle it. She just freak out. Uh, but I'm watching the space program. From the time I was a kid, the Mercury program. All these guys were combat, were veteran pilots, test pilots,
Yes.
combat pilots. What always struck me about them was how calm these guys were. They're sitting on a rocket. And, and then, yeah, you're right about the background. We have this beautiful Brian Lawson painting back here.
Yes.
Brian Lawson, to me,
Perfect.
was a brilliant painter. And, uh,
Yeah.
but they're sitting on a rocket, Robert, and they're so calm. And then
Yes.
when we discussed Apollo 13, they had an explosion when they're orbiting the moon, and Jim Lovell's famous words, Houston, we've had a problem. We had an explosion on a
Yeah.
spacecraft. I mean, these guys were so calm and being combat. First of all, I think they're just probably slow heartbeat guys, like they talk about in sports. They're just slow heartbeat guys to start
Hmm.
with. But then being combat pilots and you're fighting these life and death struggles, probably contributes to that. But yeah, these guys are really classic heroes, Rob, calm in the face of whatever danger that
Yeah.
they're confronting. So it was really
Hmm.
for a young child like me coming out of a crazy family. It was very inspiring.
Yeah. And Andy, if we talk about hero worship, every kid in America who was a kid at that time, that's it gripped them because they saw the possibilities that if you look up to the physical moon at night, knowing that, first of all, it was a goal to reach there, and then that it's accomplished, it it really shows you so much what the human, the title is man at his best. So it's the human ideas and actions put into practice on, again, on a scale since humans have existed, they've looked up to the moon, and the idea of conquering that and planting an American flag there, again, it's every American kid, it was just built into what their hero worship entailed. And we know that they were, actually, I shouldn't say every American, high percentage of American kids, because
Yeah,
there were opponents to it. And we'll definitely talk about Ayn Rand's reaction, who was there at the takeoff and wrote two excellent articles, which we recommend: Apollo 11 first, and then Apollo and Dionysus a couple of months later. And there was hostility too, because people just wanted, as she says in her article, the money to be spent on the war on poverty and all these other things. But Rand says, if we're going to be forced to pay our tax dollars, at least Apollo paid for itself. It showed us something concretely that this could be done. And fortunately, there were, dozens, hundreds, possibly thousands of private companies that put this uh, event, literally launched this event and succeeded. And as you said, importantly in the beginning, land on the moon and return home safely. I mean, that
right.
was John
Right.
Kennedy's, announced
Exactly.
goal, to bring him home safely.
Yeah, not leave them there to die. Um, but yeah, they would never have gotten off the ground. Never mind come back from the moon if it would have left just to government, to the
Mhm.
government. It had to be
Yeah.
all these private companies, which is why the Americans succeeded and the Soviets failed. I mean, what was that? What
Mhm.
was that great line from Nobel laureate Milton Friedman, that if we put the government in charge of the Sahara Desert in 5 years, there'd be a shortage of sand? you know,
Yeah.
some hyperbole there,
Yeah.
but we get the point. But about the naysayers, Robert, yeah, they're with us to this day. They don't want Jeff Bezos or Richard Branson or Elon Musk or these guys spend their own money, that they've earned, from their own work with their own companies. They don't want them spending that money to go to Mars or whatever. That money, these socialist types who feel that, altruist types who feel that money should go to the needy or the poor and everything, which that's a whole set of problems involved with that has no place on the hero show. We could start a false
No.
philosophy show. We could start a mistaken philosophy show and discuss what's wrong with that mentality. But yeah, we're here to discuss heroes. And one last point, um, before I turn it back to you. Ever since July 20th, 1969, and the Eagle has landed, any night where the moon is shining, and especially if there's a full moon, I'll look at it and I'll think, I wonder what Neil Armstrong and the other Buzz Aldrin and the subsequent Apollo astronauts who walked on the moon, wonder what they thought after coming home for the rest of their lives when they looked at the moon, because to them it was a whole different perspective than the
Yes.
rest of us have. And we should point out
Yes.
there were 12 Americans have walked on the moon, right? I think Apollo 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, and 17 all were successful missions. And interestingly, Apollo 13, which did not succeed in its mission, is the most famous, second only to Apollo
Hmm.
11, which that's because of the survival story. But, six successful lunar landings and returns, 12 Americans walked on the moon. I always wonder, and some of them are still alive, I believe. I always wonder what they thought or think, when they look up at the moon after having actually been there. One of 12 men in human history have actually landed on the
Yeah.
moon. It's got to be what a experience that must be for them. What a sense of pride and accomplishment that must be.
Yeah, I'll have something to say about that in a second, Andy. But for right now, what I'd like to do is switch to Ayn Rand's perspective, who was invited
Yeah, go
to
ahead.
attend the launch and was honored. She was honored because the way she describes in her Apollo 11 article is that she's sitting there in the scorching sun, waiting 3 hours before the launch, and some politicians, not even worth turning your head, get up to the microphone. And then finally, when the launch takes off, here's Ayn Rand and the Human Potential. Here's a section from her article, Apollo 11. She says, one knew that this cataclysm was planned, unleashed, and controlled by man, that this unimaginable power was ruled by his power and obediently serving his purpose, was making way for a slender rising craft. One knew that this spectacle was not the product of inanimate nature, like some aurora borealis, or of chance or of luck. It was unmistakably human, with human for once meaning grandeur, that a purpose and a long sustained disciplined effort had gone to achieve this series of moments, and that man was succeeding. For once, if only for 7 minutes, the worst among those who saw it had to feel not how small is man by the side of the Grand Canyon, but how great is man and how safe is nature when he conquers it. It's just one of my all-time favorite quotes of Ayn Rand. She concretizes my view of the human potential, and she stood there and experienced it herself.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, no amount, perhaps no amount of evasion could obscure the fact that this is a triumph of reason. I mean, the
Yes,
science, the
yes.
technology that went into this. This is man's rational faculty at work. And you mentioned the great scientists and rational philosophers, Aristotle, Newton. You're there, to Robert Goddard, the father of rocketry. This is an achievement of science and more fundamentally of human reason. And that may be why the people, some part of the reason why the people who hate it do hate, because they're irrationalists. But yeah, this is
Yeah.
for anybody who recognizes, as Ayn Rand dramatizes brilliantly in Atlas Shrugged, that the mind is mankind's instrument of survival. Apollo 11
Mhm.
concretized 100%. You couldn't mistake this for anything else other than a triumph of human reason. Human
Yeah, one
reason
more
at work.
quick quote on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Go ahead.
Exactly, Andy. She says, and no one could doubt that we had seen an achievement of man in his capacity as a rational being, an achievement of reason, of logic, of mathematics, of total dedication to the absolutism of reality. Say exactly what you said, Andy. She's
Yeah,
echoing that thought, or you're echoing what she said.
yeah,
Either
yeah.
way, it's
Yeah, no, no, I'm
profound.
echoing. Yes, and Ayn Rand said it. I read it and understood it, and I certainly agree with her. But yeah, and another aspect of this is, since man is a being of volitional consciousness, as Ayn Rand points out brilliantly, we have to choose to be rational, and so often, so many of us choose to be irrational, and brutally, murderously irrational. You can see, the crime rate and the endless warfare and the racism and the tribal warfare and the persecutions and all this irrational bloodlusting in human history and current events, a sight of undiluted rationality as an opposition to all of this irrationality. I mean, the contrast is just stark. Rationality leading to advance and achievement, and the irrationality leading to bloodshed and mass murder. And you could be proud.
Mhm.
I could read all this stuff, all this bloody stuff from history, and think ironically, oh, it makes you proud to be a human being, right? You say sarcastically, but this does. There's no irony here. This does make you proud to be human. This is
Yeah,
man at his best, like the title of this show is. This is the human potential. This is what we can
yeah,
be. We're not necessarily criminals or murderers or fighting race war and all this irrational, brutal stuff. This is what we could be. This is what we could do if we commit ourselves to reason.
yeah. And also, Andy, what she mentions in the Apollo 11 article is that once Armstrong stepped onto the moon, she had a short moment of fear at what he would say, because here's
Right.
an historic moment. So whatever he says, it's going to be captured uh, to eternity, as far as famous quotes go. And he matched it. He lived up to the
Right.
moment by saying, one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. And that,
Yeah.
I could just feel for her, the greatest
Yeah. Yeah.
man worshiper in history, Ayn Rand,
Right.
hears this culminating achievement of reason, and the person who speaks first about that moment, captures man again at his best.
Right.
Perfect.
He didn't say God, God enabled us to do this. I remember there
Yeah.
was an earlier Apollo flight, and one of the astronauts was reading, from the
Eight.
Bible,
Eight.
when they were orbiting the moon. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes.
It
Yes.
was reading
Christmas
from was
Eve,
reading from
night.
and reading from
Mhm.
was reading a biblical. Okay, I could see why Ayn Rand would be horrified that Neil Armstrong might say that. But Neil Armstrong had described himself as a deist, at least at one point in
Yeah.
his life, and so he
Yes.
wasn't. He wasn't. I don't know if he became religious later on or not, but he
Not,
certainly
not to
wasn't.
my knowledge. Not to my knowledge, Andy, because the book First Man. Okay, we talked briefly about the film, but there's a book
Right.
that the film was based on, and I personally enjoyed the book a lot more. And they go into his backstory. And no, he was not religious. He was not religious, and he resisted even arguing about the topic. So he faced a bit of not that much, but there was discomfort in his views on the topic because yeah, it was Apollo 8 that the astronauts read from I think the book of Genesis, and Ayn Rand feared a repeat of that, which did not happen. But his co-pilot Buzz Aldrin was religious, and I think that was
Right.
one reason they did not choose him because they were afraid he would make a religious statement. And yeah, many people would agree, but not everybody would. And so Armstrong captured the
But
moment.
yeah.
I just like to say one brief thing. Brilliant program called From the Earth to the Moon, which Tom Hanks had produced, and a few others, covers the whole arc from the Mercury, Gemini through the Apollo mission. And at one point, right before the launch, uh, Aldrin, the three of them are kind of playing pool, and Collins is asking, like, what are you going to say, Neil? And Neil says, now this is probably fiction, but Neil says, I don't know. I'll wait till the moment before I say something. And Collins says, if you had guts, something like that. I'm paraphrasing. He goes, if you had guts, you'd say something like, what the hell is that? And cut off the mic.
He's like one of these alien horrors. What is the alien horror
Exactly.
movie?
I love that.
Oh man.
And
Oh yeah. NASA maybe a little too straight laced to have tolerated to have welcome at least welcome. But
so
the
I just
whole
wanted to
yeah. Go ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry. I was going
Uh,
to switch to Michael Collins, but if you want to stay on Neil, I have a brief side note on Collins that I wanted to mention as
it's just a
well.
few things. Just a few things. First of all, I want to ask you about the accuracy. Because I didn't read the book. Who wrote the book First Moon, by the way? I mean,
Ooh,
First Man.
I don't remember. I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually
All
don't
right. Well, it's
remember. But
easy
mhm.
enough to go up on Amazon and
Yeah, we'll
find
put
out.
it in the show
But
notes. Yes. Mhm.
okay, great, thanks. But in the film, there's a very touching scene where his Neil Armstrong's daughter had died very young, a
Yes.
year, I don't know,
Yes.
2 years old or something. And would he have a bracelet of hers or a necklace of hers that he
Yes.
left on the moon? Karen, was her name
It's
Karen? Karen Armstrong,
it's
I think.
beautiful. That is a beautiful
Is
scene.
that accurate?
Yes.
Is that an accurate out of Neil Armstrong's life? Did he actually do that? Or
You know
did
what, Andy? I can't say definitively. Now I can't
okay,
say actually that I remember that from the book, which was I read many years ago, and then when I saw the movie,
okay.
I have not reread the book, but it's a
I
beautiful
get it.
scene in the film.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, the film First Man with Ryan Gosling, and if anybody sees it, you'll see it's very, very touching moment in the movie. But coming back
Hmm.
to the actual event, the crew did a great job in many ways. First of all, the language, the chosen words. When the LEM, the Lunar Excursion Module, separates the Eagle, when the Eagle separates from Columbia, the ship. Uh, Neil
Hmm.
Armstrong says the eagle has wings. That's the one that really I just thrills me. It
Hmm.
just sends tingle down my
Hmm.
spine. The eagle has wings. We're flying, and then of course when they landed, Neil Armstrong said, what were the words? Tranquility Base. The eagle has landed.
Eagle has
And then of
landed.
course,
Yes.
the eagle has
Houston,
landed. Right.
Tranquility Bay.
Yeah, the eagle has landed. And then of
Perfect.
course, yeah, perfect. When he steps foot on the moon, like you said, one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. Perfect language. And also, we should mention, I love the insignia of Apollo 11, of the American eagle, symbolizing, the animal that symbolizes America and American freedom. And I think is there an American flag in that insignia?
Yes.
And in
Yes.
the in the eagle's talons, I think if I remember correctly, isn't the eagle holding an olive branch in its talons to
Yes.
signify
That's
to
right.
signify to signify that we Americans come in peace? Not that there's anybody on the moon to dispute that, but if there were, we come in peace. We're not the Soviets. No, we're not going to conquer Eastern Europe and then hold it,
Mhm.
as part of slave society. We're the Americans. We liberated Germany, large parts of Europe from the Nazis, and we went on. We didn't occupy those countries the way the Soviets did. We don't come in conquest. We come in peace. And
Yes.
for the furtherance of human knowledge, and for exploration, for scientific, the quest for scientific knowledge. And it's all very, very noble, and everything they did, the Apollo 11 crew and the people at Mission Control at NASA who made it all possible. It was like, it was just perfect, because everything was just right.
Hmm. Hmm. So picture yourself as
Yeah,
Michael Collins.
right.
Your
Flying the
your
Columbia
two
went off.
buddies, right? Your two buddies are you're the lonely in one sense. You're the loneliest man in the universe because everyone's looking at your two buddies walking on the moon.
Go
So
ahead.
he comes back, and he comes back to acclaim as well, properly earned. And Ayn Rand wrote to him. No, he wrote to Ayn Rand because he loved her Apollo 11 article that she wrote. I'm not. I don't think she heard from the other two astronauts, but I just want to read. This is from Letters of Ayn Rand, page 648, where she replies to Michael Collins. She says, "Thank you for your letter. To tell you the truth, it stunned me in a happy way. That you thought my article was probably the best you have read on Apollo 11 is the best reward I received in my entire writing career. Yes, of course, you may quote from my article anytime you wish. Any part of it, I shall feel proud if you do it. With profound admiration, Ayn Rand." So here's like a full circle that she's glorifying this accomplishment and the men who did it, and gets a response from one of the three astronauts who were on this historic mission. I think it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
it is beautiful. That is very, very touching, and that's a great photograph. Is that Neil Armstrong, or was that Buzz Aldrin on the lunar surface? Because I know Neil Armstrong
That
took
should be
most of the
Neil.
photographs.
Yes, he
Is
took
that
most of them, but that the classic one, yes, that is Armstrong. Hmm.
that is a
Actually, you could
great.
see Aldrin in the reflection, holding the
Yeah,
camera. If you look close enough, you actually see him. So
yeah,
they're
yeah. You
both
can
in it.
see,
Okay.
right, and you can see the lem, right, and you can see the American
Hmm.
flag in the
Hmm.
reflection from Neil Armstrong's
That's right.
visor, and of
Yeah.
course the American flag on his sleeve. We'd also mention that we should mention the film Apollo 11, if people haven't
I
seen it.
loved it. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because that came out, what,
Hmm.
2019, right? The 50th
50th
anniversary year
anniversay
of the
footage.
mission. Yeah, the actual footage from the it's the real deal. As they're approaching the lunar surface and you're looking out the window, and there, wow, that's actually the moon was brilliantly simulated in First Man, but it was a Hollywood simulation. This is the real deal.
Yes.
This is the actual in the movie Apollo 11. This is the actual footage from that mission. It's just extraordinary movie. I don't know how many
Yeah.
times.
I, I
It's
agree,
it's
Andy. I
amazing.
went like, I'm sorry. I went like three times to the movie theater and then bought the DVD as soon as it came out. First of all, I love the music. the music was soft when they were in the cerebral mode of going through tests and everything. But when the rocket takes off, there's this like churning, high adrenaline music that you want to be with this thing that's just zooming through space. And the scene that I looked for the most, the reason I saw it 3 times in the theater was there is one shot of the high profile, or whether they're politicians or the media, they're in the blazing sun. And I caught Johnny Carson. I was actually looking for Ayn Rand, but you could see Johnny Carson with a hat. He's wearing a hat in the brilliant sunlight. So, but there's no dialogue, no narration in the film. It's actually, no, there is dialogue. There's like press coverage and things like that, but there's no narration. So it's just pure documentary of the event. And I loved it. Absolutely loved the film Apollo 11. Highly
Yeah,
recommend.
me too.
Hmm.
Me too. Strongly recommended. And it reminds me, I don't know if you remember, circa 1970, there was a song by this Canadian guy. I think his name was Gordon Sinclair. I don't know. It's been a long time, but I think the name of it was The Americans. Go up on YouTube and find and look for it. Everything's on YouTube. It's that's an impressive technology too. Anyhow, it
Hmm.
was this Canadian dude. I think his name was Gordon Sinclair. I think the name of the song was The Americans. He's actually talking to music, and he's saying how he's fed up with his fellow Canadians always criticizing the Americans, and he's talking about all the things the Americans could be glorified for. And at one point he says, and this is the part that really, that as a teenager, I was in my late teens, really got me. He said, you talk about, Japanese technology. He said, I don't remember the exact word. He said, you talk about radios and televisions. You talk about German technology. You're talking about automobiles and stuff. But you talk about American technology. This chokes me up even now. He said, you're talking about men on the moon, and home again safely. And he says, glorifying
Yes.
this,
Yes.
and it always hits me. What a great country this used to be.
Yeah.
Hopefully, and still is, although we're in
Still is.
decline. Hopefully we could reverse that and come back. But less than 66 years from Kitty Hawk to the moon. I mean, it's unbelievable. Only the
Yeah.
Americans could have done that.
Yeah.
Only,
Yeah.
the country's flawed. Oh, yeah,
Yep.
most people are flawed. Certainly, most nations are flawed, includes the United States. But this is the greatest country in history. Only the Americans could have done that. It's just an
Yes.
extraordinary achievement. Think that
Yeah.
December 1903 to July 1969. That's fewer than 66 years from the first
Hmm.
manned, heavier than air powered flight to landed on the moon. That's just jaw dropping. That is just
Yeah.
absolutely astonishing.
Yep. Yeah. So I wanted to go back to Neil Armstrong, and when he passed away,
The
it was certainly,
2012, right?
yeah, certainly sad when that happened. And I wrote a short piece in the Objective Standard about Armstrong and the entire mission and his family. I'll just read a quick quote from his family. They put out a statement saying, honor his example of service, accomplishment, and modesty. And the next time you walk outside on a clear night and see the moon smiling down at you, think of Neil Armstrong and give him a wink. So this past July 20th, I went for a walk with my friend Leopold at night, and I told him that short story, and I said, let's give a wink to the moon. And that's one of my policies going forward. I always think of Neil Armstrong, even if it's rainy, cloudy, and I can't see the moon, that night is his in my own mind.
No, I agree. July 20th, and like I said,
Mhm.
it could be January. If I see the moon, I think
Yeah.
about those 12 Americans from the Apollo program who walked on the moon, and the extraordinary
Hmm.
heroism, and the courage, because
Yeah.
this is dangerous. This is this is really this is really dangerous. I remember, I think it was um, in the book and the movie The Martian. The
Mm.
Matt Damon was, I think it
Yes.
was in
It's
The Martian
excellent.
when he, yeah, yeah, and wicked funny. Uh, I forget
The
the
book,
author's name. It
especially.
was Andy. Yeah, yeah, it was Andy.
Hmm.
What's his name? Andy something. I forget his
Weir.
last name. And
The
yeah, yeah,
author
yeah, Andy
Weir.
Weir.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
Weir, right? Yeah,
Yes.
I recommend the book, The Martian, and the Matt Damon film is very good. But I think it was in that film when, at the end of it, when he's returned home safely and he's talking to the astronauts in training, and he says something like, "This is dangerous. You got to understand, this is space." And when
Yeah.
anything that it's like Murphy's law. Anything that can go wrong is gonna go wrong, and it's all life threat and
Yeah.
the real dangers in this. And we saw the fire, early in the early days of the Apollo program that tragically,
One.
yeah,
Yeah.
killed. It was killed Gus
Three of them.
Grissom, Gus Grissom, Ed
Yes.
White, Roger Chaffee. And
Yes.
Gus Grissom was a veteran of the space program. He flew the second
Yeah.
Mercury flight. Space travel
Hmm.
is dangerous. And we know today the Soviets lost a number of cosmonauts. They I guess they didn't have the Navy, that the Americans
Hmm.
had. They had to try and land, on land.
Right.
Bam. You crash on land.
Yeah.
It's but I know the Soviets lost cosmonauts. Space travel is dangerous. And the guys who were astronauts and actually physically venturing forward into space, the vital frontier. That's right around the time when Star Trek, the original Star Trek series, was first popular, sometime in the late '60s. Space is
That's
the
right.
vital frontier. Yeah, space is the vital
Yes.
frontier, and the frontier is dangerous. And you got to
Yeah.
salute the physical courage of these men, because they're risking their lives here, and for this. Yeah, and human beings are often mixed cases. Maybe for glory, and I guess if somebody accomplishes something like that, they deserve the glory. I certainly don't begrudge it, but also for push back the envelope, to the exploration, to map out the physical universe in which we live, the scientific knowledge that this enables us to gain. Eventually, the exploitation of natural resources on you know, all of these moons and planets where there's no life, and human beings could use for mining colonies, like in Robert Heinlein's famous novel, "The Moon is the Harsh Mistress." This will become a
Yes.
reality. Will become a reality one day. There's all kinds of benefits to this, and here are the pioneers risking their lives, just like I always think of Magellan, one of my heroes.
Right.
But
Hmm.
Magellan even more so, because in the Apollo program, like in Apollo 13, when you have an explosion on, on the spacecraft as you're orbiting the moon, Jim Lovell's in contact with Mission Control. Houston, we've had a problem. Well, what's Magellan going to do? Once they're out of sight of land, it's like, oh, the ship's sinking. Madrid, we have a problem. He's got
Hmm.
no contact with anybody. He's got no help
No.
forthcoming. They didn't know where they were going. They had no maps or charts. At least the Apollo program, they had some idea. Modern science had advanced to the point they had some idea what the moon looked like, what was possible landing places and stuff. Even so, the physical
Yeah.
courage it takes to go and I'm not going to do it. I'm a hero worshiper, Robin. I'm not a hero. I'm going to sit at home and watch him on TV. I'll tell you what a wimp I am. I wouldn't even have been outside in Florida in July when it's 100 degrees and humid. I would have been in the motel room with the AC blaring. You're watching on TV because because I'm not a hero. I'm a wimp in that way. But I'm a hero worshiper. I have tremendous admiration for the courage,
Yes.
and the brains, and the calm of them facing that. Yeah, I have tremendous admiration for that. It's a real
Hmm.
heroic achievement. Man at his
Yeah.
best.
Man at his best, Andy. And I think that's a good place to end because, like you said, we could talk about the artistic uh, um, influence that it had on movies. You mentioned we have a movie, we have music, and the series, television series. There's a lot of those, but maybe when we go over Apollo 13, we can mention that. But the mission as such, I was mentioning this earlier, a couple of Apollos later, when the astronaut hits a golf ball and it just goes into the infinity.
Right,
And that is so American. We don't even land on the moon. We play golf on the moon. That is just so American, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Too bad they didn't bring a bat and a ball and play
Yeah,
some
true.
baseball on the moon. Have a picture of Babe Ruth. who we
Yeah,
celebrated on the
that's
Hero
right.
Show a few years ago. But yeah, you're right. It is very American. And we go to the moon, and it's like a vacation spot. We go to the moon and have fun. You know, the American sense of life. Yes,
Yes.
definitely.
Hmm.
And and
Great.
there's all kinds of there's all kinds of heroes for us to celebrate regarding exploration. We mentioned Magellan is a what a hero that guy was. It was
Yes.
flawed hero, but towering hero nevertheless. The Apollo 13 mission, Jim Lovell, one of the great pilots of history.
Yep.
I mean, was
Yes.
it in the movie Apollo 13 where his mother, I think his mother is telling one of his children, if they made a washing machine that could fly, right, my Jimmy could fly it. She's so proud of her
Yeah,
son. Again,
that's right. She is.
so,
Yep, absolutely. Hmm. Hmm.
so there's a lot of heroes in this rich field of exploration, including the U.S. space program, and God knows what's to come. Robert, Elon Musk says we're going to be on Mars in 30 years, and I think that's very possible.
Yeah, and actually, if you again another aspect of inspiration, you have on your wall this beautiful painting of a father and the child watching this achievement. I go up to my roof, 25th floor, whenever there's a space launch, and I can see it 30, 40 miles away, and it just fills me with joy. That's one reason I am now where I am, because I want to look forward to more human achievements.
Right. And
Mhm.
I mentioned Elon Musk. He's a very mixed case. He likes to
Yes,
suck
he
off the
is.
the, the teat
Yes,
of
he is.
of U.S. taxpayer dollars, but nevertheless, he's SpaceX is a great company doing great things, and I'm cheering him
Yes.
on. I don't doubt that we can land on Mars within the next 30 years, as he said.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
like in Star Trek, I guess we could sign off here. Like in Star Trek, as you go out, God knows where, exploring, God knows what. In God, maybe I should have used God. We were just talking about that. Exploring the extent of the Milky Way galaxy and some unknown corners of the galaxy where we're going to find who knows what, if there are life forms out there, are there intelligent life forms there? I don't know. Nobody knows. But when and this will be long after I'm gone, but hopefully my spirit in some sense will live on and be able to hero worship this. We'll have to every rational person will have to recognize that Apollo 11 was an enormous pioneering step forward in this march towards man's exploration of space.
Yes. Guided by reason.
Yes,
That's how I'll end it. Hmm.
yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
Guided by reason. One list. Who's also a hero. I guess even when I'm sick, I'm kind of irrepressible, Robert. We got me talking about heroes. I can't stop. Uh, the astronomer Carl Sagan, who did the
Yes.
cosmos, who's
His series, books, and mhm.
brilliantly done, and died so young from cancer is really sad. Cancer is no respecter of
Mm,
genius or of age. But he was a principal guy in the program. Carl Sagan and Dr. Sagan, professor at Cornell, I think, kid from Brooklyn, as I recall. Uh, but he was heavily involved in SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and so he's emotionally invested in this. And some reporter asked him once, he said, Dr. Sagan, gut feeling, is there intelligent life in outer space? And Carl Sagan responded, I don't think with my gut.
mm.
Ooh,
Perfect.
I always tell my logic students this is reason. This is science. Yeah, emotionally I want there to be. I'm heavily invested in it, but I have no evidence. I have no evidence yet. Well,
Mhm.
Robert, I'll conclude with this. If and when we find the aliens, I just hope we find the American aliens, not the German aliens.
Yes.
I don't mean that as an insult to the Germans. They have a militaristic history, but they have a glorious history of intellectual achievement too. But you get my point. Meet the American
Yes.
aliens, not the Russian aliens. All right, guys.
Yes.
Any last words for the Apollo program, Robert?
No, thank you. take a wink up at the moon when next time you see it, and think of Neil Armstrong. That's my
Yeah,
closing words. Hmm.
I love that advice. I will do it.
Hmm.
And everybody out there in Hero Land, we shall recur to the Apollo program because we will do an episode on Apollo 13 at some point down
Yes.
the road. So I want to wish you,
Yes.
Robert, and everybody out there in Hero Land, have a more heroic day and lead a more heroic life. We'll be back next week with more heroes because this is the Hero Show.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Andy. Bye bye.
Thank you.